Hi. Today I want to walk you through some strategies for thinking about your drafting work this week for Project 3. Last week, as you were working on doing some reflection and working on an outline for your project, it might have felt like kind of a busy work week because you had to think of a lot of things in terms of remembering what your claim was, um, thinking about how you we're going to rephrase that claim if your mind or your thinking has changed on it over the last few weeks. You had to start thinking about the major ideas you wanted to present and where you wanted to include some sources. In the outlines that I looked at, I saw that nobody got yet to putting your sources into your outline. So it looks like that work is stuff that's going to be happening pretty heavily in this drafting week. What I want to do in this video is talk you through some things to think about to get ready to write. I want to show you a little bit about the drafting work that I could do this week. And then I want to also talk about how I'm going to plan my week, including today, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday when my draft is due, so that I can work for about an hour every day. That plan might change as they go throughout the week, but I want to start the week with a plan. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start just by reiterating the points I want to go through in this video. What I show you here is the order that I want you to work through things in this week, but I'm actually going to talk about things a little differently. So I'll actually end by talking about making a flexible plan, but I want us to look a little bit at integrating your sources into your outline, drafting and revising sections of your paper, and then how you're going to submit your paper for peer review. Okay, so here is my outline from last week that I showed you in the video last week. And I haven't thought of a title yet. We'll do that in a second. I did add my sources to my outline, and you can see up here that I actually already included some of my citations in the background section of my introduction because that was the stuff that I worked through with you the other day. So I have some sources integrated in parenthetical references in my intro, but I think I'm going to start today by tagging sources, where sources are going to go in the body of my paper so that I can remember where I want to put them. And something that you might go back to do this is your synthesis map that you made a couple of weeks ago. In that synthesis map, you categorized the main ideas that you wanted to explore in your paper or the ideas that your sources discussed. And in some cases, you were able to see that more than one source explores parts of a topic. So you might cite more than one source in a paragraph. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes to think about where my sources are going to go in the outline that I have right here. Even though I haven't fully developed all of these ideas, what I'm going to do is jot down some ideas, add in some sources. It's not going to be a complete look at where sources are going to go in my paper, but it's going to help me get started. If you want to, you could pause the video right now and do the same thing in your outline. Okay, so I spent a few minutes drafting some more of my ideas and sticking in my citations in parenthetical references where I knew they might fit. But I also realized that there are some places where I'm going to need to keep researching. So for example, if you remember, my argument is that instructors and observers in a teaching observation process should be invited to submit reflections on that process after the experience is over so that administration can understand how the process is going. And I know anecdotally that getting feedback from people on an experience, as soon as possible is really important. It doesn't really help to ask them about an experience like a month later. I know that from being asked for feedback, and I know that from listening to, for example, graduate students talk about not being asked for feedback in a timely manner. So, what I want to look for is a source, maybe a higher education source on experience surveys that will help me look at this idea and just support the idea that asking for feedback immediately is useful. I have to think also about sources that are going to support the sort of procedural steps and the examples that I'm giving in this section, but I have included some of them. So this is helping me get started. I also remembered one source by Chris Anson that I don't have in my work cited yet, but I would like to add in there. So I'm remembering my reading and I'm adding ideas as I go. So this is not a complete look at how sources are going to go into my draft, but it's a start. Okay, so let's go back to the next thing I said I was going to do, draft and revise sections of my paper. I suggested in the video last week that you copy and paste your outline over into a new document so that you can still see the outline and have that kind of static version, but then also develop your paper. So what I'm going to do right now is that very thing. Select all, I'm going to copy, and I'm going to make a new draft in here, copy and paste. I'm going to change some things because it's not going to look like this anymore. I have my draft there. Okay. So this is all going to go, and I'm going to put in my MLA heading, your name, your teacher's name, your class, and the date. And I'm going to put my title, centered. Let's just call it Inviting Reflection on the Teaching Observation Process. That's good for now. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of lose some of these outline parts so I can see what my draft is looking like. So what I mean is I might keep the heading right now, introduction, just so I remember what I want it to look like, but the kind of outline notes are going to go away. So if you're ready, you can pause the video and work on doing that for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and look at some other formatting things. Okay, so I took a moment to take out some of those outline headers, not all of them yet because I still have some bullet points down here that I'm not sure what to do with yet. But I just want to show you some other formatting things for your paper so that we can start to see how an outline can turn into a working draft. So I'm going to remember that my whole paper is double spaced. You might like drafting in single space, that's fine, but when you submit your paper this week, please put it in double spaced. So I'm going to do that. I also want to put in a header and some page numbers. So headers and footers. On the right hand side, I'm going to put my last name, and I'm going to insert a page number on every page. Actually, leave the space. Okay. And finally, I want to make sure that I'm writing this in Times New Roman and not in Arial. Change that up here too. Okay. And I can see that I'm looking for a 6 to 8 page paper, right? I'm already on the 4th page with just these initial ideas and sketches. So that feels really awesome. That's always one of my favorite parts, is just seeing like how far I already got. Even though I feel like I'm still just kind of working through loose ideas, my paper is starting to take shape. So that feels awesome. All right, so that includes, my introduction, which I'm feeling really good about, that paragraph. And then obviously most of the paper is going to be developed here in the body section, but I have my works cited page also. So, all right, I've got my draft going. I started to think about where my sources are going to go. I'm working on my formal document. It's starting to look like a research paper. I want to think about my plan for this week. So I'm going to pull up my calendar and I want to look at where I think some things might go. It looks like my computer already added in all these big holidays. So here we are on Friday the 3rd, and I've been working on my outline, but I want to keep developing notes in my draft. So I'm going to keep doing what I was just doing, adding in ideas and thinking about where my sources are going to go. Tomorrow, I'll work a little bit tomorrow. I think I am going to do some research. I'm going to look for sources on feedback. I know I need that one. On writing program administration, WPA, use of reflection. And I'm going to review my sources on teaching observations that aren't in my works cited list right now, because I have some of those. So tomorrow's really going to be a reading day, and I might add some notes into my paper. Sunday, I'm going to take a break from my paper. A lot of family stuff here. Well, with a few of us that are here. Monday, I am going to develop paragraphs in the body of my paper. Tuesday, I'm going to work on my conclusion. And then Wednesday, my paper's due, but I think in the morning I'm going to read top to bottom and add, revise ideas in my paper. Turn in at least 8 to 10 page paper. I want to try to turn in at least an 8-page draft for feedback. Okay. I'm already almost halfway there. So by the time I do some reading and then actually spend time working in my paragraphs, I want to remember to use the paragraph sandwich model that starts with a claim. Let's look at one place where I'm doing that right now. We'll come back to my calendar in a second. So the last paragraph that I was working on here is one presenting some examples of how and why my solution is better than other ways that administrators can review the teaching observation process. In using that paragraph sandwich model, I'm going to remember that I have to start with an introductory claim. That introductory claim is like a tiny little thesis statement that is working as a topic sentence for this paragraph, but is also tying back to my major claim in the paper, which I left in bold. So here it says, despite the fact that an administrative sense of how things are going can certainly be gleaned from review of the teaching observation forms themselves and available conversation with participants, explicitly and formally inviting feedback on the observation experience is important for several reasons. So that's a little mini argument in my paper. And then my job in that paragraph is to explain those many reasons. I have the reasons here. There may be cases wherein the parties involved do not feel comfortable addressing challenges in the process in their observations. That's one example. Now, what I'm missing in this paper, or in this paragraph rather, and in a lot of the paper so far, is evidence from a source. Could be an example. I want to look through my sources and I want to see if any of them discuss an example or if they further develop the statement that I made. But I need to include evidence from my sources in this paper. It's a researched argument. So I can't just have the ideas in my head. I also have to support them with research. And when I provide that evidence, then I also am going to add a sentence explaining the evidence. Or if I use a quote that's like 3 sentences long, I probably have 3 sentences of analysis. Then I'll look at my next idea in the paragraph. Additionally, discussion of any challenges or positive experiences in the process of engaging in a teaching observation might not be prompted by the form. There may be outlying cases not attended to in the form. So again, I need evidence from an example. I think I know that our other paper has an example, so I'm going to look there first. Explain that evidence. Finally, it might be that both observer and instructor hope to present shared aspects of the experience to administration in a formal route that will be counted, that is not anecdotally gathered. And I probably want to find evidence from a source on formal versus anecdotal evidence. And then I'm going to leave a note for myself to explain that source. Having a system in place for gathering feedback can support this work. So this is my concluding claim, and my concluding claim ties back to my introductory claim in the sentence and back to my major claim in the paper. So it caps off that whole paragraph, can stand alone once I include evidence from sources and explain that evidence. This whole paragraph can stand alone as an argument, as a mini argument. Okay, I want to remember that I'm going to be flexible with my plan. So I'm starting my week thinking that every day I'm going to spend about an hour doing the thing I listed here. Of course, I might have to change. Monday, when I'm developing paragraphs in the body of my paper and focusing on using that paragraph sandwich model, I might realize, oh my gosh, I'm missing some research. I need to go back into the Wayne State Library database and find some more ideas. That's totally fine. I can pause my writing, go into some research, maybe have a couple tabs open if I'm able to work on the computer. I also want to think this week about where is going to be a good place for me to work. Right now, I have a little desk set up in my bedroom because that's where I can have some quiet time away from the kids and kind of can like leave my research work and my books stacked up and whatever and access all of them. But you want to figure out where that good place is where you kind of focus for an hour or two and get something in. And remember, even if there's a day where you feel like you're not going to get that really good focus time, you might just try reading through your draft from top to bottom. I do this a lot when I'm not really sure where to start on a given day, but I know that if I just start by reading what I've already done, I might see that there's some work I want to do in the sentences. I might think of something to say that I haven't said yet. So that can be really helpful. Okay, let's just take a quick look here. In coursework due Wednesday, April 8th by 11:59 p.m. Full draft of Project 3 for peer review. This is your submission spot. And you're going to see directions here for submitting your paper and then also for what you should do when you are doing peer review. So there's some notes in here about attending to MLA feedback, reading through your draft before you submit it, and then if you want to leave any notes for your peers to give you feedback on, you can include those notes using the comments feature in Microsoft Word. And then what's going to happen when you submit your paper is that the next morning, Thursday morning, I will assign 2 people in class to read your paper and give you feedback, which means that each of you is going to also look at 2 papers for homework for the next week. This is what I want you to write about in here. Checks to see whether the writer has asked you for any specific feedback. Read through the paper once to understand their argument and use of evidence, and then work through the paper a second time to leave the author comments and questions you have about the draft. And I have some suggestions for what you might comment on. I expect that you leave at least 5 specific and useful pieces of feedback on each paper that you read. Think about feedback that's going to help your peer take next steps in their revision. Please pay attention to the deadline for that feedback. Your peers are going to need their feedback on their paper with enough time so they can work on revision. So I wouldn't say wait till Monday the 13th to do it, because it'll probably take you about an hour to do the feedback total, but you should complete that feedback by Monday night, April 13th. Okay, so that's what I have for you for this week. It's you and your draft and working through that. Remember that you can email me if you have questions. I will do my best to be online Monday and Wednesday during our class time so that you can jump in and ask me questions. And you can also still email Haley and Michelle if you need some help from them. More soon. Bye.